what sort of environment would require Bitcoin to get to 1 million? Well, first off, let's kind of think about where we're at right now. Bitcoin's about $1 trillion asset, right? Let's compare it to gold, which typically gets compared to, which I believe is like 9 or 10 trillion. And gold isn't really used for a whole hell of a lot as well. But, we do certainly have a path forwards to, some of those crazier numbers, because just fulfilling what gold is acting as now, which I think Bitcoin is probably a better alternative, definitely makes more sense to the younger generations as well. That's rather reasonable, and probably even more on top of that as well. I mean, we even see countries like using it as currency, I suppose. Right, yeah. Kind of crazy. But when you talk about 1 million, then we start to get into a different sort of territory, because it would probably imply that something terribly wrong has happened within the world. And while it's definitely possible, and maybe, and probably even probable in some scenarios, some doomsday scenarios, I'm not sure I'd want to live in that world, because
I talk about that too.
Probably World War III happened or something, and you don't want to be the only person surviving in an apocalypse,
Yeah, I always think about like Mad Max dystopian future. Like, yeah, I've got my Bitcoin and I'm taking it over to Gastown with my security because in my armed semi-rig from the 1940s. Yeah,
exactly.
I guess I could tend to agree with that. I mean, if gold has an 11 trillion market cap, let's call Bitcoin a trillion, even though it's not. 11x from here is 500 grand. So
that's
something
pretty
like
good.
that.
I'm good with that.
I'd be pretty happy with that. Like, if it doesn't get to 1 million, I'm not going to be too upset. So that is a really interesting way to think about it, I think, because at those certain price targets, you have to start thinking about a real fundamental change in the world as we see it.
Right. Possible, yes. I mean, maybe Bitcoin, I don't know, becomes like just a balance sheet asset, a treasury asset, and basically everywhere around the world. I mean, that's possible, I suppose. Maybe a few years off, definitely. But I certainly, if anyone's listening right now, hopefully I don't get misheard here. This would have to be like way far in the future, not anytime soon. We're talking like 20, 30, 40 years, probably dead by then, if it's me.
So do you think the 6-figure Bitcoin is a reasonable possibility?
Yeah, I do think so. I mean, again, just going back to the analysis in comparison with gold, as we saw earlier, if this bull market does want to continue on, $100,000 is actually a somewhat relatable and reasonable target. That maybe could even happen in the next year and a half, I suppose.
2.5x from 40. Yeah, I mean, it's nothing for Bitcoin,
I mean, and there's still a lot of, things that could happen on behind the scenes. Perhaps another South American country picks it up, or an African country. Also an ETF that's definitely looming. I think it's certainly possible this year. Still, I'd say extremely likely next year.